everyone, what's going on? Finally getting a chance to make another video here. It's kind of unfortunate because I don't have enough time, and if you go to my blog that I'll leave in the description, I've had a ton of crazy synchronicities and things I want to make videos on. I just don't have the time or the motivation sometimes to make them, and I feel like I need to talk about this Christmas bombing in Nashville a lot more than the other synchronicities that have on my blog. And this Nashville bombing, though, it does have a lot of interesting things that sync up to my own life, and it also syncs up to a fellow truth seeker named Bobby Simpson. He has a channel here on YouTube. You can check him out, Bobby Simpson. And he's probably the person who leaves me the most comments and, sends me information more than anybody else, He leaves comments on my blog a lot. He sends me Facebook messages and so on. And what's so interesting about this Nashville bombing on Christmas Day is the fact that it happened in the vicinity of this AT&T building, which is also called the Batman building. And it didn't necessarily hit this building, but it happened around the corner at a different AT&T building. And think about this one being the Batman building and a whole lot more. I'm going to explain how this whole thing is synced up to a lot of old information and my Batman stuff, and it's synced up to even Sean Connery dying, which I talked about clear back in April. I talked about how I thought Sean Connery might possibly die this year, connected to the moon, and then he died on Halloween, the night of the full moon, and so on. And I talked a lot about Harley Quinn. And Bobby just so happens to be a person who is from this area, right? He's from Tennessee. I can't remember what town it was. Starts with an M, but he's the one who told me about this Batman building because I've been talking about a Batman narrative for a good amount of time, That was even part of the reason why I thought either the Rockets or the Lakers were going to win the NBA Finals, and synced up to China because of Daryl Morey's tweet the same day that the Joker movie came out, and a whole lot more. And Sean Connery is also important to that because if you remember, in 2012 there was the Aurora theater shooting, the Batman shooting, right? James Holmes shot up the theater during the Batman movie, and in the previews of that movie, they had a preview for the James Bond movie called Skyfall, and on a building in China called the Aurora Plaza, they literally showed the building that said Aurora on it, and then that night, Aurora, Colorado got shot up. And then, of course, Sean Connery dies and so on. And think about the shooter's name in this, or the bomber's name. His name is Anthony Quinn Warner. And if you go to my old blog post where I talked about Bobby Simpson telling me about this video, or telling me about this building, I even mentioned Harley Quinn. Right? The Harley Quinn movie was coming out. A whole lot of interesting things. It was synced up to the Kansas City Chiefs a lot. And the Blackout Bowl. If you remember, after the Batman shooting, the Baltimore Ravens went on to win that Super Bowl. And if you watch that Batman movie, there's a kicker named Ravenstall who kicks the ball, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers player Hines Ward is the one who runs for the touchdown while the stadium collapses and so on, and he's wearing the number 86. And of course, in Gematria, if you write out, Aurora, Colorado just so happens to equal 86, and so does James Egan Holmes, the guy who supposedly shot up the thing. So does Bane. Bane is the main bad guy in the movie, right? Bane. Christian Bale plays as Batman. Christian Bale equals 86. Also, trying to think here. Hines Ward wore the number 86. There's a lot going on with it. Even the movie Skyfall, right? Skyfall equals 86. And what really sticks out to me with all of this is, if you've been following me for this last year, I've been saying how I think the date August 6th, 8/6, is going to be an important day in the year 2022, because it falls on Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av begins this day. Tisha B'Av just so happens to be the Jewish Remembrance Day for the destruction of the two temples in history. and they both were destroyed on the 9th month of and the 11th day of the Hebrew civil calendar. And notice how in Jewish gematria, Tisha B'Av just so happens to equal 9/11. Think about AT&T, which made 911 the emergency dialing code in the year 1968, which was the same year that George Bush graduated from Yale Skull and Bones. And Skull and Bones is important because there's, on the 33rd episode of Batman, on the TV show, they talk about how, I think it's Batman's great-great-grandpa was the founder of Skull and Bones, and if you watch that Batman movie, just before they blow up the stadium, they flash the number 322, which is the number that's important to the Skull and Bones, right? Think about how John Kerry was also a member of Skull and Bones, and he ran against George Bush, and only 15 people can be a member of this each year. So what are the odds that two people are running for president against each other, and they're both part of this society, right? 322, Skull and Bones, they place importance on numbers, and so on. But I'm just pointing out that it's interesting, right? Even more interesting is, AT&T made 911 the emergency dialing code in the year 1968, but World Trade Center construction also began on the date of 8/6 of the year 1968, that same year. And even more interesting is if you look up AT&T even, AT&T, let's see here. Let me just pull up my blog post. So look at this. AT&T, the original company, was founded on March 3rd, 1885. And think about how 1968 was 33 years before 2001. 33 years, March 3rd, 33. And would you believe that if you go from, December 25th to March 3rd, it's 68 days? And even more interesting is if you go from March 3rd to 9/11, it's 6 months and 8 days. And also remember that George Bush's birthday is 68 days before 9/11, and he was the president during 9/11. And Skull and Bones also equals 68 in Gematria, with the S and K exception. So, what are the odds? 6 months and 8 days before 9/11. They create, the World Trade Center construction begins in the year 68. 33 years before 9/11 happens. It's founded on 3/3. This Christmas bombing that's connected to AT&T, happens 68 days before the founding of AT&T. And they've also merged, right? AT&T has merged with Time Warner, which they did in 2018, the same day that Donald Trump met with Kim Jong-un, which just so happens to be George H.W. Bush's birthday, right? The father of the president during 9/11. And, what sticks out even more about that guy is that he gave the speech about the New World Order on 9/11 of 1990, exactly 11 years before 9/11, the day leaving 111 days in the year, and New York equals 111, and New York's the 11th state, and the buildings look like a giant 11, the Twin Towers, and the first plane to hit was flight AA-11. A is the first letter, so 1111. All kinds of 11s going on with that. NWO, New World Order, right? NWO equals 11. It was exactly 11 years before, so it just stands out a whole lot, that Time Warner, think about Anthony Quinn Warner. Think about his name. Time Warner, and literally he had an RV with a countdown on it, right? That was telling people the time, and it was warning them to evacuate. Time Warner, what are the odds of that? The judge in that case was Richard Leon. Let me just pull this up really quick. The judge of the Time Warner thing. Where did I put it? The judge who approved the AT&T and Time Warner merger, he actually was appointed to be a judge on 9/10 of 2001. So exactly 1 day before 9/11, right? So what are the odds? 1 day before 9/11, this guy is approved to be a judge, and then he's the judge for the Time Warner AT&T merger on George H.W. Bush's birthday. Also recall that George H.W. Bush was a member of Skull and Bones, and his father, Prescott Bush, was also a member of Skull and Bones. But anyway, let's go back and look at this post here. So, what in the world? But, you know, the company has since merged into a different corporation or a different thing now, and now the founding date of the new one was on 1983, 37 years ago, on October 5th. And if you go from Christmas to October 5th, it just so happens to be 9 months and 11 days. Like, what are the odds of that? To the new founding of the new AT&T Corporation or whatever, it's 9 months and 11 days. And if you go from the other day, it's synced up to 9/11 and so on, right? 68, August 6th. The reason Bobby Simpson stands out so much as well in regards to this is that his full name, and I won't say it all on here, but if you use his full name and you write it out in Jewish Gematria, it just so happens to equal 911, right? Just like Tisha B'Av equals 911. Think about the 2 towers that got destroyed. Think about how this is about the 2 temples that got destroyed on the 9th month and the 11th day. Think about 9/11, 2 towers. So that's why I think August 6th, all these Batman things and the number 86 are important. I've been talking about this day for, you know, pretty much a lot of this year. Synced up to Batman. Also, in regards to this, you know, I've been saying that this year is all about Batman because Batman equals 51, and the Batman shooting that happened in Aurora, Colorado, well, Aurora equals 43, and the Batman shooting happened on the 43rd anniversary of the moon landing, and a whole lot more, right? But, you know, Batman equals 51. 2020, on 7/20, it was the 51st anniversary of the moon landing. The word moon equals 51. Conspiracy equals 51. Area 51. 9/11 just so happens to equal 51, right? And the Francis Bacon ciphers, JFK equals 51. Think about that with conspiracy and, you know, a whole lot more. Tinfoil hat equals 51, but it's Moon 51, Batman 51. And in 2022, on August 6th, it will be in the 53rd anniversary of the moon landing, which is interesting because Tisha B'Av equals 53. And a lot of this is synced up to the tiger narrative that I've talked about, why Tiger King is important, and, you know, the word tiger equals 22. Well, no, it doesn't, but the tiger year is in the year 2022, and this year the anniversary of NASA fell on International Tiger Day and a whole lot more. The tiger narrative I talked about way before, and then all of a sudden the first animal to get coronavirus was a tiger, and the Detroit Tigers player named Al Colleen died, and a whole bunch of tiger things just keep going on with it. So, you know, Clemson, right? Joe Burrow, so on. Joe Exotic, Super Bowl's connected to Joe Montana. There's a whole lot of stuff going on with it, but Tiger King was all about the number 22. Like, he was sentenced on the 22nd day of the year for 22 years, and I can't remember it all, but I think that the show came out 79 days before Carol Baskin's birthday. Carol Baskin equals 79, which is the 22nd prime number, and Joe Exotic was married to like a 22-year-old kid and a whole bunch of stuff. It was all about 22. And then, you know, you have International Tiger Day on the same day as NASA. And then the Tiger Year is going to be in the year 2022. And, you know, the word tiger also equals 76. And you got Sylvester Stallone, who's in the movie Rocky. And the movie Rocky is important to the song Eye of the Tiger. And Sylvester Stallone's going to be turning 76 years old on the date 7/6 in the Tiger Year, so important guy, and a whole lot more, but, you know, just making a point. That day just seems important. August 6th, the year 2022, because the Tisha B'Av falls on the day. It's the 53rd anniversary of the moon. Tisha B'Av equals 53. I've also talked a whole lot about how the Charles Manson narrative is important. And the Charles Manson murders, the Tate murders, happened just after the moon landing in 1969, just days after the moon landing in 1969. You also have Jack Nicholson, who plays as the Joker, and Jack Nicholson, wasn't it the rape of Roman Polanski's rape case, I think, was at Jack Nicholson's house or something like that. I can't remember it all, but I know Jack Nicholson is important to that. You also have Margot Robbie, who is the actress who plays Harley Quinn. She also portrayed Sharon Tate in the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood film that came out last year in 2019. She's also in the movie Focus with Will Smith, where they program people with the number 55, and Will Smith equals 55, and that's why they had the story about the mom on The Fresh Prince this year crying with Will Smith in an interview that was 55 days before her birthday and 55 days after Will Smith's birthday. And that movie Focus also stands out to me in regards to Batman, because after the Batman shooting, the Super Bowl, they had the blackout where the Ravens won. That just so happened to be held in New Orleans, right? And then this year, New Orleans is having a good season. So, you know, they're the Saints. So this year seemingly connected all to the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. The Saints, you know. Louisiana equals 201. Pope Francis's real name equals 201. The Jesuits were founded by Ignatius of Loyola, that equals 201. Pope Francis stays in room 201, called the Domus Sanctae Martyr, that equals 201. The word tiger equals 201. Louisiana equals 201. So, you know, just sticks out to me. Anyway, let's go back. So now that I've explained a little bit, I want to go back and I'll just go back and go through some of my posts here that I talked about, because there's a whole lot that's going on with it. The movie Wonder Woman 1984 also came out on the day of Christmas, and Wonder Woman's also important to Batman and a whole lot of stuff. I'll explain it in a little bit, but the first live action Wonder Woman film just so happened to come out on, or it was Batman vs. Superman, the one with Ben Affleck, and there's a whole lot more that I will explain. But let me find the post I talked about to begin all this. So the day that it happened, I talked about 9/11 a whole lot. Another interesting thing is we got the death of Casey Jones, the Boston Celtics player named Casey Jones, and Bobby Simpson here, he just so happens to, he used to have, his YouTube channel used to be called Casey Jones, right? And he also still has a blog called Casey Jones Occult Astrology, right? And I'll explain more about this in a minute, but what are the odds a guy named Casey Jones dies the same day as this, you know, this bombing that happens, and he lives in the area of this bombing. He's the one who told me about the Batman building a long time ago. And in that post, I talked about Harley Quinn, and then the guy's middle name is Quinn, right? Anthony Quinn Warner. What's even funnier is, like, just days before this, I made a blog post about a guy named Richard Quinn who was on Zach's live stream, right? And, I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect him or anything, but all I'm saying, I've heard him say this type of thing multiple times, that how, like, he's saying, if my name equals 322, or if I was born on 322, it's not connected to Skull and Bones, and it doesn't matter. I'm not connected to anything, kind of thing. And that is completely wrong. If you've been following what I've been showing for years, your own life is absolutely important to what is going on within these mainstream media stories and so on, right? And I just don't like it when people say that, because I feel like it's misleading to a lot of new people that show up here, and they think that everything is the cabal, and that is absolutely not even close to true. And I have just countless examples of how this goes on. But let's move on here. Just wanted to make a point. It's interesting. I talked about Richard Quinn in a blog post, and then, you know, Anthony Quinn Warner and Harley Quinn is synced up to Batman. But let's go back and look at this post here, and I just want to start all the way over and talk about what I talked about to begin with here. So on Christmas Day, I talked about how this was at the AT&T building, so I knew that was synced up to 9/11, because, once again, AT&T made 911 the emergency dialing code in 1968, and same year World Trade Center construction began, and so on. And, you know, when I saw where it was in Nashville, it was at the AT&T building, and it was by the Batman building, and I started thinking about Bobby Simpson, right? Fellow truth seeker here. Bobby Simpson. I started going, that's some crazy stuff, because he told me about the Batman building a long time ago, and this stuck out to me because, you know, his channel used to be called Casey Jones, and he even has this blog called Casey Jones Occult Astrology still, and I'm going, that's some crazy stuff, because the same day as this bombing, one of the major stories just so happened to be the death of this basketball player named Casey Jones, the Boston Celtics player. Casey Jones, right? And then what are the odds that Bobby's real name, his full name, equals 911? And even more so, the address of this bombing was 166 2nd Street. And it was 166 days before Bobby's birthday. And Twin Towers equal 166. And, you know, this happened on Christmas. And if you go back to 2016, something I've talked about a lot this year too, when Montegraph, the Umbrella Man, threatened Zach to watch out for Christmas Eve, and then a car crashed into his house. And it was all about the number 166, right? 166. Then my uncle died. My uncle was connected to the Flintstones that aired 166 episodes, and my uncle's name equaled 166. And I found out what his birthday was by asking my mom, because I didn't know. And I asked her 166 days after what his birthday was. And it was at the gold slipper that equals 166. And later that year, Monograph made a video about the number 166, telling Zach to watch out for it. And it was 166 days after my birthday. Then the next night on the Gematria Effect, some lady called in named Mary Toffelmeyer, who equals 166. And she was talking about her pet pigs and how she was Montegraph's next victim, and he was trying to kill her pig or something, and she has these pet pigs, and the whole time I was sitting next to 2 stuffed animal pigs that my daughter called her pets when she went to bed, and she told me to watch them. The word pigs equals 166. Mary Toffelmeyer equaled 166, and just the day before that I was talking about how we might find a truth seeker named Mary that is involved to this Angel Gabriel narrative, because the Angel Gabriel only sees Daniel, Zechariah, and Mary in the Bible. Daniel, Zachary K. Hubbard, and then thinking about Mary, right? So, just interesting, the very next day after this, Mary Toffelmeyer actually reached out to me, and I want to get back to her. I just haven't had time to comment and whatever, but she reached out to me, like, you know, that she never knew any of this stuff. And I was like, because her brother was born on 7/7, and that supposedly is her birthday too. And he was a Seattle Seahawks center. And he wore the number 56. And he died on the Jesuit anniversary. Can't remember it all. And he died at the age of 46, right? Catholic 46. Society of Jesus equals 56. He died on the Society of Jesus anniversary. Bunch of stuff I talked about way back when. So 2017, that year was all about the Jesuits. So it's interesting how this year is connected to the Jesuits. That year was also all about Charles Manson. This year is all about Charles Manson. That year was all about a twin theme. And, you know, what are the odds that I talked about how the restaurant Wendy's is going to be important? And then, of course, we get the Wendy's that burnt down right after George Floyd. And that's why I talked about it, all because I went to Wendy's, synced up to a twin theme in my own life. And it was all about the number 261. So, and then this year in June, we got the Wendy's that burnt down in Atlanta and a whole lot of stuff. But, you know, just synced up to Bobby somehow. Casey Jones. Casey Jones equals 40 and 41, also 77. And Boston equals 77, the team that he is famous for playing for. If you just write KC, it equals 40. RV equals 40. AT&T equals 40. AT&T also equals 201 in Jewish. And think about how that's connected to the Jesuits, right? I've been talking a lot about the Francis Bacon ciphers being important. They equal 77 in Gematria, so AT&T equals 77. AT&T also equals 41, and they said there was at least 41 businesses that were damaged. You know, not just 40 or, you know, like why 41 specifically, right? Just like how they do everything, right? 41 businesses specifically were at least damaged. They couldn't have said at least 40 in the article, so they said 41. AT&T equals 41, and Al-Qaeda equals 41, airplanes 41, 9/11 happened on a date numerology of 41, terror equals 41, skull and bones 41, USA 41, the Pentagon construction began on 9/11 of the year 41. Remember George H.W. Bush died 77 years after the Pentagon construction began. And, of course, he was the leader of the CIA until the year 77, and his son, George W. Bush, got married in 77, and his father, Prescott Bush, died at the age of 77, 7 months and 7 days before or after his birthday. I think Prescott Bush even equals 77. I could be wrong on that, but 9/11, all about 77 here. You know, United States equals 77, World Trade Center 77, September 11th, 77. Flight 77 at the 77-foot tall Pentagon, exactly 77 minutes after takeoff in the 77th meridian. You know, whole lot more. This happened on Christmas, too. Christmas equals 110. The Twin Towers were 110 stories tall. Osama bin Laden equals 110. The Pentagon has Highway 110 next to it. If you read out 911, it equals 110. Super synced up here, right? Even more so, if you go from December 25th to 9/11, it's 260 days. And in the Francis Bacon ciphers, Nashville, Tennessee equals 260. It also equals 102, and Al-Qaeda equals 102 in Jewish, and the World Trade Center attack supposedly lasted 102 minutes. Talked about how, you know, Tisha B'Av equals 9/11, Al-Qaeda terrorist attack equals 9/11 in Jewish. In regards to Casey Jones, too, I started thinking, the other Casey Jones that I know is from the Ninja Turtles, right? The first Ninja Turtles movie. And I looked up the guy who plays Casey Jones in the Ninja Turtles movie, and his birthday just so happens to be 3/11, which is the day they did the tribute in light for the 9/11 attack, right? They did the tribute in light, and it was even like, I can't remember how, it was like 11 cents per hour per kilowatt something to have that lit up. They even say on the Wikipedia page, you know, think about 9/11, all about the 11s. You know, that was also 3,119 days after the bombing in 1993, right? Of the World Trade Center. 3119, a lot like 3/11 and 9/11 backwards, right? But notice it's 77, Christmas was 77 days before this guy's birthday, too. Casey Jones from the Ninja Turtles. Casey Jones, the basketball player, he died 151 days before his birthday. And his name in Francis Bacon equals 151. And Bobby Simpson also equals 151. And Joker equals 151 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Think about the Batman building. Think about Christmas, supposedly on Jesus' birthday too, right? You know, which obviously it's not Jesus' real birthday, but that's what that's the way they celebrate it, right? The Catholic Church and so on. Saturnalia and whatever else. But Jesus Christ equals 151 in Gematria. And 9/11 is really important to this too, because there's a ton of people that think that Jesus' real birthday was 9/11, which is something I've talked about a lot too with the calendars, because the Ethiopian calendar actually begins on 9/11, and also the Christian Coptic calendar begins on 9/11. And Ethiopia believes that it's the year 2013 right now, right? Think about that in regards to the Batman shooting, right? On August 27th this year of 2020, that was the date 12/21/12. Think about the Mayan calendar on the Gregorian calendar stuff, how we were led to believe that was the end of the world type of thing, right? The end of the age, right? Think about Jesus and the end of the age and Pisces and the age of Aquarius and, but 8/27 also just so happened to be the day that Haile Selassie had died, and Haile Selassie was the guy who was the main guy in Rastafarianism, right? Rastafari, think about Rastafari, Bob Marley, and so on, but they believe he was the second coming of Jesus Christ. So just think about that, 12/21 of the year 12 on the Ethiopian calendar. Some interesting things to think about when you think about that. I should look up what Christmas was on the Ethiopian calendar, but I just never looked it up. I wonder what day that is. I had to look it up. This is craziness, to me at least, but Christmas, the day of this attack in Nashville, just so happened to be 4/16 of the year 2013 on the Ethiopian calendar. And if If you go back to my stuff about Sean Connery, I talked a lot about the number 416. And, hold on. And it was synced up to Pope Benedict. Pope Francis and Pope Benedict. Because that was the year that Pope Benedict resigned and Pope Francis became the Pope, was also in 2013. That was, within the year after the Batman shooting. And notice Pope Benedict's birthday is also 4/16, so. Interesting. I wonder how old was he? 27. So that would be 73, 83. He was 86 years old. Huh. Synced up to Batman. Huh. Right? Am I right? That's 73, 83 plus 3. So, yeah, 86 years old. 4/16/2013, he was 86. Huh. Well, whatever. I'll come back. I need to blog about that and think about it, but it's interesting to me. This is actually pretty interesting, because if you go from the Batman shooting to his 86th birthday, it's 8 months and 27 days. So did I just say that 12/21/12 was 8/27 this year on the Ethiopian calendar? It's interesting. If you go from this Christmas bombing to that day, it was 3 months and 22 days, right? Reminding me of Skull and Bones. It's also 112 days, and it's super synced up with the Super Bowl, and the word Super Bowl equals 112. Super Bowl equals 260 in Francis Bacon Gematria, just like how Nashville, Tennessee equals 260 in Francis Bacon Gematria. And it was 260 days before 9/11. 9/11 important to George Bush. He's a member of Skull and Bones. Batman had the 322 before the stadium exploded. They foreshadowed us a whole lot, too, The film Oblivion with Tom Cruise in it, where they said that the last Super Bowl was held, and he had the New York Yankees hat on. Right? That was in 2017. So, and I've just been recently talked about having synchronicity with Katie Holmes and how it was synced up to Tom Cruise, too. So, and the drone in that movie in the very beginning, it's drone 166, right? Which is synced up to Twin Towers, the address of this Nashville shooting. So, they've been foreshadowing this a lot and a lot of different things, the attack at a Super Bowl. So, who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe there will be an attack at the Super Bowl, or something connected to that, It's mind blown. Hold on, I gotta look up Pope Benedict again in Gematria here. Pope Benedict. XVI. I don't see anything there. I guess I didn't pull up the Francis Bacon ones. We'll just pull up this big old thing here. Nothing really stands out to me there. Well, that stands out to me. And Francis Bacon, it's 221. So Batman's also 221. Batman's 221 and the reverse one. And Aurora, Colorado's 201. Or 221. Huh. Well, that does think. I'm going to talk about this number later. Or this date even, 221, seems important too. So, whatever. Let's go back to this post here. But Kansas City Chiefs too. I said Super Bowl equals 260. Kansas City Chiefs equal 260. Boston, Massachusetts equals 260. And think about KC Jones. KC, right? Kansas City, KC. So it could be synced to them. I'm not so sure. I don't know. I talked a whole lot about Batman being important to Super Bowl 50 that I thought the Chiefs were going to win, too, in 2015, after Pope Francis came to the United States. So, and then, the Chiefs won last year for the first time in 50 years. The Chiefs equal 50 and a whole lot. So, I talked a lot about the Batman stuff leading up to that Super Bowl. So, That truly makes me wonder a lot. I've talked a lot about the Ravens this year, too. The Ravens are the team I've been stuck on since the beginning of the season, so we'll see what happens. The Ravens didn't look like they were going to make the playoffs, and now they look like they're probably going to make the playoffs. You know, they're really important to the coronavirus and stuff, so I don't know. There's some other interesting things there, but I'll skip over. But, you know, Nashville 39, Batman 39, New York 39. Let's see here. I think I talked about this earlier. You have all the 68, 9/11 stuff. The New York Jets are also playing really well right now, right? The New York Jets were the team where Tom Brady got to go in the game after Drew Bledsoe got injured. The New York Jets, right after 9/11, where the airplanes supposedly hit the towers and so on. The Jets they won a Super Bowl in 1968. The last time they won the Super Bowl was in 1968 as well. The savior AT&T made 911, so on, right? Drew Bledsoe, the guy who got injured where Tom Brady became the superstar, right? He wore the number 11 as well, right? 11. And then Tom Brady's birthday was 39 days before 9/11. New York equals 39. There's a whole lot of stuff going on with it. That's why New York, you know, made the major upset over the Seattle Mariners just after 9/11, right? To go into the World Series. And that was 1 month and 11 days, like 111 or 41 days, you know, like Al-Qaeda and so on. Like, you know, the word terror, airplanes and so on. So, probably getting boring here, but let's get into the Batman stuff now, right? The Batman, I should have made this simpler, but when they released the name and also where this person was from, the bomber, his name was Anthony Quinn Warner. And they said he was from Antioch, Tennessee, which is, Antioch is the suburb of Nashville, or the city right outside of it. And this stuck out right away for a couple of reasons, because first of all, Antioch, if you look up Antioch, it's where the term Christian actually comes from. And think about Batman, who is portrayed by Christian Bale, the actor, right? Christian Bale. And in 2015, when Donald Trump was running for president, Donald Trump announced that he was Batman in a helicopter at the Iowa State Fair. Like, just the weirdest article ever. Donald Trump said he was Batman. That same month, there was all kinds of Batman stuff. The Batman shooter, James Holmes, he got sentenced. We had the death of a guy who dressed up like Batman and went around to hospitals. He died. We had the death of Yvonne Craig, the lady who played Batgirl. We also had Morgan Freeman's granddaughter named Adina Hines, reminding me of Hines Ward. She died, and all of the news outlets, or at least Fox News I remember, had a picture of him and her, Morgan Freeman, and her at the Batman premiere. And so there's all this Batman stuff, but on August 5th that year, before Donald Trump said he was Batman in a helicopter, there was a theater shooting in Antioch, Tennessee. And, you know, think about the theater shooting with the Batman shooting. 2 weeks before the Antioch shooting was the Trainwreck shooting. There was a shooting at the Trainwreck movie, right? The movie with LeBron James and Amy Schumer, and it was all synced up to Pope Francis's visit to the White House. And he came to the White House on the anniversary of the French Republic. Right, 9/22 is the day that he arrived in America. Then he went to the White House at 9:23 in the morning. On the date 9/23, he arrived in America on his 923rd day of being the Pope. And LeBron James equals 923 in Jewish Gematria. And the movie Trainwreck that he's in with Amy Schumer, it begins with Amy Schumer's character as a 9-year-old girl. And the rest of the movie takes place 23 years later, right? 923. All of this stuff, it was all synced with France. And it's interesting. there's so much going on with this, but it reminds us of the Batman shooting for one, right? The theater shootings, Batman. It was in Antioch. And I will come back to this, but just in regards to France, when Donald Trump said that he was Batman in a helicopter, it just so happened to be on the date of August 15th. The day 8/15. And if in history, that is Napoleon's birthday, right? Napoleon Bonaparte, French Revolution guy, right? Napoleon. And it also just happens to be Ben Affleck's birthday. Ben Affleck. And Ben Affleck, in 2016, he went on to be the next Batman in the movie Batman vs. Superman. And Batman vs. Superman just so happened to be the first live-action film that starred Wonder Woman. First live-action film that have Wonder Woman in it. And then Wonder Woman 1984 comes out on the same day as this Nashville attack. And what's so interesting about this is that Wonder Woman's name is Diana Prince. And I talked about the parallels to Princess Diana, who died in a car crash in France. And what sticks out even more is if you look up, so Ben Affleck was born on the same day as Napoleon, but the guy who played Superman in that movie, his name was Henry Cavill. And this guy just so happened to be born on May 5th, which is the day that the French Revolution began. And it's also the day that Napoleon died in history. So Superman in the Batman vs. Superman was born on the same day Napoleon died. And Batman, who is Ben Affleck in that movie, he was born on the same day Napoleon was born. Right? And then think about how it's connected to Pope Francis. And then Pope Francis comes to America on the anniversary of the French Republic. And this sticks out even more because if you go to Bobby's blog, the Casey Jones Occult Astrology, the last time he made a blog post, it just so happened to be on September 22nd, the anniversary of the French Republic. And his birthday is June 9th, he told me. And if you go from 9/22 to his birthday, it just so happens to be 260 days. And once again, Nashville, Tennessee equals 260. Synced up to 9/11. So there's definitely something important to how it's connected to France, right? And what else is interesting too in regards to the Jesuits were actually created in Paris, France on the date of August 15th. Although the official anniversary is 9/27, they were actually created on Napoleon's birthday, and they were created in France on that day, which is also Ben Affleck's birthday. You know, think about all this Batman stuff. And we'll go back to it here, but if you go back and look up this Antioch theater shooting that happened in 2015, right around all the Batman shooting stuff and whatever. Originally they said the shooter, he was 51 years old, and then they changed it to 29. And I mean, does this guy look like a 29-year-old? He looks more like 51, right? But for some reason they changed it to 29, but the word Batman equals 51, right? And think about how we're in the 51st year of the moon landing and so on, and Batman shooting on the moon landing. But at that movie, if you look up what movie he went into, I don't think he actually shot it up. I think he had a pellet gun and like a hatchet or something, right? So I've been saying shooting it up, but he attacked it. But the movie that was playing in this was, I thought it said it in here somewhere. Maybe I'm crazy. Well, anyway, you can go and look this up, but the movie that was playing just so happened to be the movie Mad Max Fury Road. And for one, that sticks out to me because I've been seeing this meme like crazy. Although I can't seem to find that it's true. I've even watched the movie, but it says Mad Max took place in the year 2021. And possibly, I just can't actually find it. But it's interesting that a meme is going around. But, like, when you look up this movie, Mad Max, the Mad Max and Fury Road just so happens to be played by Tom Hardy, the actor. And Tom Hardy just happens to be the character named Bane in the Batman movie, right? The Dark Knight Rises. Tom Hardy plays Bane, who's the guy who blows up the football stadium and blows up all the bridges, whose name equals 86, right? And I know this is important because earlier in December, we had the death of the guy who played Immortan Joe in the movie Fury Road. Mad Max, right? He wore a mask. Bane wore the mask. Think about Darth Vader who just died. Darth Vader who had to wear the mask. But anyway, this guy from Mad Max Fury Road dies. Tom Hardy is the other star of the movie. Tom Hardy is also Bane from The Dark Knight Rises that got shot up. Notice how they're Immortan Joe equals 164, Tom Hardy equals 164, Mad Max Fury Road equals 164. I had some synchronicity that I'll skip over here, but, Batman 221, Aurora, Colorado 221. The guy this is the guy who attacked the Mad Max movie, Vincente Montano, his name equals 221. I was just kind of searching through Zach's blog and so on to find some stuff, and because I didn't have a blog at the time of this, I just made videos, and I wrote stuff down on a notepad and whatever, and I don't know if I have that notepad anymore, I can't find it, but I searched Antioch on my blog, and it was interesting. One of the only things that came up was Logan Paul, a video about Logan Paul interviewing some guy who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and his name was Kevin Hines. And I talked about Adina Hines and how I thought it was synced up to Hines Ward and Batman, right? But Logan Paul stands out because Logan Paul is the guy who's going to be fighting Floyd Mayweather on 2/21, or 2/20, and on the date 2/20, sorry. He's going to be fighting Floyd Mayweather on 2/20, but if you look up Jake Paul was just in the Mike Tyson fight, right? And he knocked out Nate Robinson, but if you go back, he was connected to the Tyson Fury fight that happened in February, I think it was. I can't remember what day it was. I should have wrote it in here, but he got into a fight at his hotel the day after the Tyson Fury fight, right? So it was the day after. It just makes me wonder about the date 2/21/2021, right? 2/21/2/21. And it's, I don't know, Batman equals 221, Aurora, Colorado equals 221. Think about that connection I just found with the Pope Benedict. It's kind of interesting. That's also the 52nd day of the year. The word Pope equals 52. Remember Pope Francis came to America on the anniversary of the French Republic, which was 52 days before the ISIS attack on Friday the 13th in 2015 in Paris, and ISIS also equals 52. So does President, so does White House, Pope, so on, right? The 252nd prime is 239, and then think about how he went to the White House on 23/9. He left the United States on the night of the fourth blood moon of the Tetrad, which was also the Jesuit anniversary. He's the first Jesuit Pope. So there's something super big with how this is related. It's funny, too, that Antioch shooting, it happened on the date of 8/5, and it happened at the Carmike Hickory Theater. Carmike Hickory equals 85, and Antioch, Tennessee equals 85. And I think them were both in reverse, and back then we didn't know the reverse gematria, so I was like, oh, it's perfectly synced up. That date can also be written as 5/8, and James Holmes equals 58, and a whole lot more, so what are the odds, Mad Max guy dies. Tom Hardy's in both the movies. He's Bane. Let's see here. Tom Hardy's birthday is also an interesting birthday because Tom Hardy, I think this is Prince Harry's birthday. It's also Dan Marino's birthday, something I've talked about previously. That was synced up to Pittsburgh, and that's the day that Amazon reached out to Zach from Pittsburgh, California. So, Pittsburgh is also important to the Batman movie with Hines Ward. So there's something interesting there with Tom Hardy and his birthday being 9/15. And it's 101 days before Christmas, and Batman equals 101 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. And of course, Christian Bale. Think about Antioch and how the term Christian comes from Antioch, and he's played by Christian Bale. So I looked up Christian Bale, and Christian Bale just so happens to be one of the voice actors in the movie Pocahontas, right? And I was looking at the Pocahontas voice actors. Notice Mel Gibson plays John Smith. Mel Gibson, he's the original Mad Max, right? Mel Gibson and Christian Bale, they're both in Pocahontas. If you go to my videos, I literally just made a video talking about how Pocahontas was important, and then the lady who voiced Pocahontas in the Disney movie got arrested, Irene Bedard. So, like, what are the odds that, Mel Gibson would be on that movie as John Smith? I didn't even realize that. And then Christian Bale was also a voice in the movie Pocahontas, and they're synced up here. Synced with the Mad Max. Christian Bale's also John Connor in the Terminator movie's Terminator Salvation, and I just documented about how I had synchronicity with the guy in Terminator 3. I can't think of what his name is right now, but he's also in that movie with Katie Holmes. That's why Tom Cruise is a part of the movie Oblivion. But he's in the movie Disturbing Behavior. Can't think of what the guy's name is, but the Terminator. There's something very important to robots and artificial intelligence, and I don't even know. Somebody commented on my Allen Iverson video the other day, 12:29, exactly 2 minutes after 12:29 at midnight. And it was about Allen Iverson, right? AI. His name's The Answer. The Answer equals 12:29, like the date that somebody commented about it. And I don't know, there's all kinds of interesting things with YouTube taking my video down, and I've always wondered about that. I talked about the Matrix and whatever, so who knows? There's more to think about with that, but it truly seems like we live in the Matrix, like for real. Like, I feel like a robot a lot of times. Like, there's a huge code, and like, I mean, I don't know what I fully believe, but it sure seems that we live in a world much like the Matrix, or maybe we are robots, or something similar to the way they portray robots in movies like that, Maybe that's how the world works. That's the answer, Allen Iverson's his full name, Allen Azael Iverson, also equals 260, right? And then I'm talking about how Nashville, Tennessee equals 260, Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs. There's so much. I'm just going to talk about it. This video is already so long. Let me go back to my Allen Iverson thing really quick. Let me just find the email. So, this guy asked me about if I could upload part 1 of this video again about Allen Iverson, because YouTube took down only part 1. I had more than one part. I mean, each were like 15 minutes long. If it'll ever load up here. So this is a part 2. But I called it Allen Iverson, Philadelphia 76ers, Masonic coding, possibly foreshadowing the next false flag. And I put all of these videos out on the date 12/12/2015. I'm pretty sure. I didn't look at the other ones, but I know part 1 for sure was on 12/12 because I blogged about it. But what they did was they restricted my video on March 6th of 2015 or 19. They restricted it, which is the 65th day of the year. And on that same day, the 76ers were playing their 65th game of the season. And Zach LaVine actually beat the 76ers. He played for the Bulls. He made a buzzer beater to beat the 76ers. And Zach LaVine equals 65. It was on the 65th day of the year. And it was their 65th game of the season. They lose to Zach LaVine, who equals 65. Philadelphia equals 65. Philadelphia was founded on the day leaving 65 days in the year. And no big deal. They restricted my video that day about Allen Iverson. And I thought, well, I don't know. Who knows, and I didn't say anything that bad in the video, but somebody flagged it, it said. And then they waited until the date of 6/5. No shit. Like, they waited until the date 6/5, and then they completely removed my video off of YouTube. 6/5? What are the odds? And that's also the 156th day of the year in 2019. And I was talking about a false flag. The word false flag in Jewish gematria equals 156. And believe it or not, this led me to look up Allen Iverson's birthday, which is 6/7. And I put this video out 6 months and 7 days after Allen Iverson's birthday. No idea I did that until they removed my video. And me and Allen Iverson's birthdays are 156 days apart. Right? So it's like, what are the odds of this? And then when I got this comment the other day on 1229, and his nickname is The Answer that equals 1229, it was also 205 days after Allen Iverson's birthday. Let's put it out here really quick. 6/7 to 1229. It's 205 days. And of course, in Jewish gematria, Philadelphia equals 205. Like, what are the odds of this, right? 65, Philadelphia equals 205. I get this comment 205 days after Allen Iverson's birthday. That's, it's all about the number 65. And once again, I'm not calling the person out who commented that. Could just be a legit person and so on, but look at their name in gematria. Something I've been talking about a whole lot is these numbers here. 264 and 164. This is a big number important to Sean Connery and so on, right? Sean Connery, 264 and 164. Kamala Harris, 264, 164. White House, 264, 164. So there's something important how that sticks up. Ben Affleck and the guy who played Superman, Henry Cavill, or however you say his name, their birthdays are a span of 264 days apart, which also means Napoleon died a span of 264 days after his birthday. Right? 264. I don't know where I put it in here, but let me get back to my posts here. And I don't know, it just sticks out to me. So Wonder Woman comes out. Wonder Woman also made her live-action debut in that film. Gal Gadot equals 201 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Also 132 of the Francis Bacon ciphers, both the numbers seemingly important to the Jesuits and so on, right? Catholic Church 132. If you go from Christmas Day to Henry Cavill, Superman's birthday, it's a span of 132 days. If you go from Ben Affleck's birthday to Christmas, it's 132 days. Right? 132. Catholic Church, Princess Diana equals 132. Diana Prince is Wonder Woman. Princess Diana died in France. Super Bowl LV equals 132. Super Bowl equals 164. Also, it's interesting, Ben Affleck, right? Think about Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman's in the Batman movie, but Morgan Freeman's also in that movie called The Sum of All Fears with Ben Affleck. And Morgan Freeman is at the football game when there's a terrorist attack in Baltimore, right? Think about that, how the Baltimore Ravens are synced up to the Batman shooting. Morgan Freeman is also in the, he's God in the Jim Carrey movies. And think about, like the Bruce Almighty movie and the Evan Almighty movie, they are all about numbers and how God works by showing numbers and so on. Just go back and watch them. The number 23, think about Jim Carrey. Think about how Jim Carrey is also in The Riddler and Batman. In that movie he uses gematria, right? Edward Nygma, he uses gematria, and that's how Batman figures out who he is, right? So there's something important to that. And then, that movie, The Sum of All Fears, is also a Tom Clancy book, right? It's based off of a Tom Clancy book. And remember when Morgan Freeman died? He died on the last day of October, and it was important to the movie called The Hunt for Red October. When Sean Connery died. And, The Hunt for Red October is also another film based off of a Tom Clancy novel, and it also used the same character called Jack Ryan that is in The Sum of All Fears. And Jack Ryan equals 264 and 164. So there's something important to how that works, right? Sean Connery, his birthday is also 8/25, which is the same day that Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon, died. And I believe it's also Tim Burton, his birthday. And Tim Burton's the guy who wrote the original Batman films, right? The one with Jack Nicholson. So there's something important to how it all syncs up. The Sum of All Fears. Terrorist attack in Baltimore. Think about the Baltimore Ravens. Wonder Woman equals 55 as well. Remember how I talked about the lady who plays Harley Quinn is also in the movie Focus with Will Smith. Will Smith equals 55, and they program somebody with 55, and so Wonder Woman equals 55. Just thinking about Kamala Harris possibly being the president and so on. It's just interesting, right? Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, all these women characters, but WW equals 55. The Christmas bombing was 5 months and 5 days after the 51st anniversary of the Batman shooting. Superman guy is born on 5/5. We're going up to Super Bowl 55. Sean Connery died 55 days before Christmas. Santa equals 55. December equals 55. Satan equals 55. God equals 55. Morgan Freeman equals 221, just like Batman. Seattle Seahawks equal 221. Talking about the Mary Toffelmeyer stuff. Tom Clancy also has connections to the Charles Manson stuff, right? Thomas Leo Clancy Jr. equals 194, like Charles Manson. He died a span of 194 days before his birthday. I mean, I should just make a video where I just show like 100 examples of people who died that many days away from their birthday who have matching name gematria. You know, it's insane. You could probably make a whole book on it. I don't know. There's something how it syncs up to France. I've been saying that forever. I thought there was something important till last year being the 227th year, but then it turned out to just be that it's all synced up to coronavirus and the Jesuits being founded in France. And what else is interesting too in regards to a lot of this, like Casey Jones or Bobby Simpson. You know, Derek even mentioned how he's like one of the biggest contributors to his blog. And Derek is from Wisconsin and Bobby's from Tennessee. And after this Nashville bombing, the Tennessee Titans played the Green Bay Packers from Wisconsin on TV. And the Packers won 40-14, right? The Packers won with a score of 40-14. And think about how all this syncs up. AT&T equals 40 and whatever. RV equals 40. Casey Jones equals 40. But it also equals, look at Green Bay. Green Bay equals 40 and also 41, like AT&T equals 40 and 41. And, the Titans scored 14 points. 14 equals 40 and 41. So there's something very important to it that they were playing each other. And Derek's name also equals 194. These Charles Manson numbers that I've talked about a whole lot. So I even talked about synchronicity and so on with Derek and whatever earlier when I was talking about the umbrella symbolism and whatever else in previous videos. So September 11th equals 194. They also said this song by Petula Clark called Downtown was playing, right? Just before the Nashville bombing, the song was playing. And, if you look up the song, it says the song was recorded by Petula Clark, but it was composed by a guy named Tony Hatch. And of course, Petula Clark equals 39, Tony Hatch 39, Nashville 39, Batman 39. New York 39. It even really sounds like a song that the Joker would have played in the movie, you know, like before he blows something up. But, you know, possibly just my opinion. But if you listen to the song, it just sounds like a song they would play in a Joker movie. Petula Clark's birthday, 40 days, though, before Christmas, right? Also 1 month and 10 days, Christmas 110. Christmas also equals 38, downtown equals 38. You know, evacuate now is another thing that they kept saying that the thing said. The RV was saying, RV 40, AT&T 40, evacuate now 40, Christmas 110, so. Downtown also equals 88. And 114 of the Francis Bacon ciphers, and Petula Clark just turned 88 years old. The album was also, what did it say? Her first album, this album that it was on, was her first album licensed to Warner Brother Records. And think about Time Warner and AT&T merging, right? What are the odds? The Time Warner, AT&T, this lady's song is from the Warner Brothers album. Anthony Quinn Warner. So in regards to his middle name being Quinn, it just, you know, like I said, my old blog post about the Batman building, I talked about Harley Quinn, and, you know, the name Quinn just really sticks out to me for, if you, like, my cousin Jacob has the middle name Quinn. And I always thought that was a weird name for a man to have, like a middle name, you know. He's the only person I know with a middle name named Quinn. And maybe it's because I always think of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, right? The TV show Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. And it was always interesting, too, my cousin Jacob, his initials are JQB, which sound a lot like his name, Jacob, right? Jacob, right? So I don't know. Just, you know, something that always just stuck out to me. But when I was thinking about Quinn, I was like, man, that's interesting. And my cousin, he lives in Kansas City, and he's a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And his name just so happens to equal 260, just like Kansas City Chiefs, just like Super Bowl, just like Nashville, Tennessee. So that was an interesting thing, you know, thinking about the Chiefs. Talked a lot about the Native American theme lately. Possibly it's for the Chiefs, but we'll see what goes on. But anyway, I'm just going to skip over some stuff, but I looked up Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman because I don't know, I haven't seen that show in years, right? But I remember watching it all the time with my mom or something, you know? I don't remember that much about it even, but, well, not whatever. Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. And it's actually, she's portrayed by Jane Seymour. And, you know, she sticks out right away because she just happened to be the James Bond girl in the film Live and Let Die. And if you go back to my videos about Sean Connery, I was talking all about a rose theme and how a rose theme was important to Charles Manson and also to Batman because of Seal, who sings the song Kiss from a Rose that's in the Batman movie. I believe it's in the Batman movie where Jim Carrey is in the movie where they use Gematria, right? But Donald Trump was at the Mask Factory back in May, and they had Guns N' Roses blaring, right? And they had the song Live and Let Die blaring. So then we get Sean Connery dead. So just what are the odds Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, is played by Jane Seymour, who was the Bond girl in the movie Live and Let Die, you know? Something I've talked about a whole lot. Live and Let Die. I don't know. It's mind-blowing. The Dallas Cowboys also play the New York Giants this upcoming week. They play in New York, but what's interesting is, a long time ago, I was just looking up times I've documented Quinn, and it wasn't very many on this blog, and I talked about this kid I went to school with in Arizona named Kevin Quinn, and how his father worked at the funeral home in, like, Arlington, I think, near Dallas, and I thought he said that his father was he worked at the same funeral home where Dimebag Darrell was buried, or Dimebag Darrell had his funeral, but Maybe I just misheard him. Maybe he just was telling me about Dimebag Darrell, but I know his dad worked at a funeral home and so on. But Kevin Quinn was his name. And if you go to his Facebook, it says he works at AT&T. And the Dallas Cowboys play in the AT&T Stadium, right? And then now they're going to go on to play the New York Giants the week after this Nashville bombing synced up to AT&T and 9/11. Just, it's interesting, you know. It makes me think of the JFK assassination, right? And how Joe Biden's going to be the 46th president, and he's the second Catholic president after JFK, who died at age 46. And he was the 35th president. The word Catholic equals 35 and 46, so I don't know. It's pretty interesting. The AT&T Stadium. There's some with Reese Witherspoon, too. I don't know, maybe I'll make a shorter video. I should just make a real short video. It's kind of confusing because I'm talking about multiple different topics, but they're all related. Like, if you really pay attention to it, they're all related. But there was this pointless story about Reese Witherspoon in the news, I think, yesterday or a couple days ago. And it just sticks out to me because I've been talking about Chubbs on Little Nicky, and I talked about the death of Tiny Lister and how that was synced up to the movie Little Nicky. And Reese Witherspoon is his mom, Little Nicky's mom in the movie Little Nicky, and she's the angel. And then Chubbs, Carl Weathers, is there, and his birthday is the same day that Princess Diana died, or Apollo Creed dies on the same day that Princess Diana died, and, you know, that's the day that Rocky Marciano died as well. And think about Rocky and Apollo Creed. And in regards to Philadelphia, you know, Chubbs teaches Happy Gilmore how to putt on the Earthquake golf course, right? And it's like exactly 107 minutes into the movie, and the word earthquake equals 107. And the building that falls over, it looks like the Comcast Center in Philadelphia with the black cube on the top of it. Something I talked about a whole lot just before Super Bowl 50 when I was talking all about the Batman stuff. So, I don't know. There's something important to why Reese Witherspoon was just randomly in the news about how she was flummoxed by Ryan Phillippe's money joke at the 2002 Oscars. So, 18 years later, you know, and think about 2002 Oscars. That was right after 9/11. And she was flummoxed? Like, what kind of word is that, right? Flummoxed equals 260 in the Francis Bacon ciphers, but it also equals 40 and 41, like AT&T and so on. The number's important to the 9/11 stuff. And if you go from 9/11 to the Oscars, it was 194 days. September 11th equals 194. Reese Witherspoon and Ryan Phillippe's birthdays are 194 days apart. And Reese Witherspoon, her birthday's 322. That's Skull and Bones number, right? So it's like, there's something big. Like, there's a reason they put this story in the media. The other movie I think of her really from, with Ryan Phillippe at least, is Cruel Intentions. That also has Buffy the Vampire Slayer in it, right? So, and if you followed me forever, I've talked a lot about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Little Nicky's girlfriend is played by Valerie Varan. It's played by Patricia Arquette. And that makes me think of Buffy again, because David Arquette is in Buffy, who's Patricia's brother, right? And just yesterday at work, some girl told me to watch The Act, I think on Hulu or Netflix. And I looked it up, and it stars Patricia Arquette. So I'm like, there's got to be something to this. But I don't know for sure what's going on with it. But there's something important. It was just so random. She told me to watch The Act that has Patricia Arquette, and then, you know, she's Little Nicky's girlfriend, and I'm looking it up later that night. So, Adam Sandler movies too, you know, something I've talked about before, but, you know, in high school, I mean, I've just noticed these patterns for years. I'm telling you, like, everyone made fun of me back in high school. They said, oh, you smoke too much weed or whatever, you know, like, but I noticed that in Adam Sandler movies, almost every one of them, the girl he falls in love with has a double V name, like Valerie Varan and Vicky Valancourt, and Virginia Vinet and Veronica Vaughn. And then the movie Hooters, the Hooters girl's name is Vanessa, you know? Like I feel like there's a reason for that, you know? But that was way back in the day before there was a ton of other movies. But a lot of his old, like, main movies, he always had a VV girlfriend. And I don't know, 44, you know, 22. I don't know exactly what it means, but it always stood out to me, so. Just keep on going here. Talked about his birthday being 117, reminding me of the bridge symbolism. And I was just thinking about it, and then I went to CNN, and they had this story about this Netflix show called Bridgerton. And I'm going, okay, Bridgerton, and so I clicked on it, figured I'd look it up, and you look up the Netflix series called Bridgerton, and just so happens to be based off of a 2000 novel called The Duke and I by a lady named Julia Quinn. Like, what are the odds, you know? Talk about Quinn. This guy's middle name's Quinn, Bridgerton, Bridges, and then all of a sudden you look it up and Bridgerton's based off of this novel by Julia Quinn, who has the Charles Manson numbers. And the show's called The Duke, or the book's called The Duke and I. And it just makes me wonder because my cousin Jacob he's a huge Duke Blue Devils fan. And on Christmas Day, the same with the Nashville bombing, they announced that the women's Duke Blue Devils basketball team wasn't going to play anymore because of coronavirus, right? So, I don't know. Just makes me wonder. Duke Blue Devils equal 152. Richard P. Quinn equaled 152, and his birthday was 152 days after Zach's, you know. That's where, you know, the Quinn thing kind of began, so. And in regards to bridges, it reminds me of this, right? This guy who crashed into the French Alps, and supposedly there's like a group of people called the Blue Devils that live up in the French Alps. His name equals 152. Andreas, like San Andreas. He's got the Golden Gate Bridge. That was the picture the media kept showing us. I do not know, but so Allen Iverson's name 260, the answer. I don't know. Super synced with Batman, synced to France, synced to 9/11. I don't know. We just keep following these patterns, but there's definitely, man, something to do with Quinn, Harley Quinn. The thing is, I don't know that much about a lot of these movies. That's the problem. I watched the Harley Quinn movie, and I fell asleep like 20 times in the movie. And I don't like superhero movies that much. That's one of the biggest problems. But there's a lot of interesting things going on. You know, Eminem releases the side B to his Music to Be Murdered By album, and then just like before that or just after that, we got a story about how Ariana Grande got engaged. And remember, you know, on Music to Be Murdered By, he talked about the Manchester Arena bombing and the Las Vegas stuff, and you know, that was on Mac Miller, Ariana Grande's ex-boyfriend's birthday, or it was on the same day he released his posthumous album called Circles. Then Eminem releases that song, or something synced up to that bombing. That bombing was also synced up to the Catholic Church. Tom Cruise ranting. Talked about a Hawaii volcano possible with Ed Rod on Facebook a couple weeks ago. Then we got a Hawaii volcano eruption. Derek and Bobby talked a whole lot about how Venus was synced up to the Christmas bombing, and I had synchronicity with Venus and the Morning Star just before the Christmas bombing. There's so many things, but whatever, it's so late. Hopefully I'll make a shorter video. I really want to talk about some of these the synchronicity with Zenith sharing my song. Because it's all about the number 67, and that's Allen Iverson's birthday, too, so. I'm sure it's related, so. But whatever. Have a good one. Peace.